just staring at. Hello. It's back to 4x3 low-resolution DVD rips again. Not only that, but we got the Intellivision out for a ROM Part 2. And this time we're going to be playing some Space Armada. Yeah, I don't have the box, I only have the overlay and the cartridge and the instruction manual, which I don't have because it's cumbersome and I don't really need it. So, I'll plop that in and, you know what, just cut to the footage and yeah.
Space Armada, released in 1981 for the Intellivision from Mattel Electronics, is a space shooter game where you... Well, let's get it out of the way. It's Space Invaders, but with the serial number filed off. And if you've played Space Invaders, then congratulations, you played Space Armada. But you probably played Space Invaders with much nicer controllers than the stock, stiff Intellivision controller, so maybe you haven't played Space Armada. Regardless, it wouldn't be a classic video game console library if you didn't have some iteration of the venerable title arcade classic among your library of games, even if it is an unauthorized bootleg version such as today's subject matter, Space Armada. Anyway, Space Armada obviously plays out similarly to Space Invaders. You have a Space Armada of ships, of invaders, whatever, slowly making their descent to the surface, and you have to clear them out before they land, all the while avoiding their return fire. Clear the wave and another one comes in to take its place, or you could clear that out too, lose all your turrets, or allow the Armada to land, and the game is over. Needless to say, if you've played enough vintage Space Invaders, then Space Armada is largely old hat. That said, Space Armada does change some aspects of gameplay so that it doesn't come across as a total carbon copy. Your bunkers don't regenerate between waves, but shooting a saucer will fix that somewhat. Later waves introduce new elements of gameplay, mostly in the form of new enemy projectiles and tactics for you to overcome. Space Armada also proves to be a bit tougher than Space Invaders by virtue of the invaders being much larger in size, and with little room to maneuver, it won't be long before the Armada touches down and ends your game before it even begins. Both the standard game and the slower practice mode does offer you plenty of lives/turrets in stock, but more often than not, I found my games usually ended with the Armada touching down, thus rendering all those extra lives pretty much useless. There are also rare occasional clipping issues where your shots will pass through certain invaders harmlessly. But on the flip side, a well-placed shot can knock out two invaders at once, which can be an immense help. Once you get the hang of things, though, Space Armada is somewhat manageable and eventually enjoyable, even with the rubbish Intellivision controllers, which amazingly are not terrible here. Space Armada certainly looks the part. The aliens are obviously not direct recreations of the original invaders, but you do get the general idea, and they at least look different enough to be legally distinct. I could have done without the obnoxious border around the playfield, sort of ruins the atmosphere, so to speak, but otherwise, it's a fine enough looking clone. Runs well enough for simple fare. Likewise, sound is also fairly simple, straightforward mimicry of the source material, no better or worse than others of its ilk. Overall, Space Armada is a competently executed and slightly remixed bootleg of Space Invaders that should satisfy any Intellivision owners who need their Space Invaders fix on their classic console of choice, and a relatively cheap title to add to the collection if you somehow don't have it already, but other than that... Well, let's be fair, Space Invaders is anywhere and everywhere these days. It's not really a game worth breaking the bank for an Intellivision over.
This next game might be, but that's next time. Bye.